ক্যামেরাটা বন্ধ করে দিচ্ছি। হ্যালো রামদা
Hello, is that okay?
তুমি ওই ফিটটা বন্ধ করো না, তাহলে আমরা এই ফিটটা ভালো করে দিয়ে দিই।
হ্যাঁ, ওটা ঠিক আছে, সাউন্ডটা দেখে নেয়। হ্যাঁ, ওকে, চলো ডান।
অন করছি কত এই ভিউ ঠিক আছে সাউন্ড ক্লিয়ারিটি তো সাউন্ড ক্লিয়ার তো অন When did you land in India?
everyone present here at the AIB South Asia Conference 2026 on changing international trade environment in South Asia, impact on international business. On behalf of the Academy of International Business South Asia chapter and the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade Kolkata campus, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this prestigious international academic gathering. We are honored by the gracious presence of our esteemed dignitaries. May I now request them to kindly take their seats on the dais. Our keynote speaker, Professor Shakir Rezara, Tulsa School of Management, University of Minnesota, USA. Professor S. Raghunath, Chair, AIB South Asia Chapter Executive Board. Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. Professor K. Rangarajan, Chair, AIB South Asia Conference 2026 and Center Head of IIFT Kolkata. Professor Deepankar Sinha, Co-Chair AIB South Asia Conference 2026 and Head of the Research Division IIFT Kolkata. I would also like to call Professor Debashish Chakraborty, Core Committee Member of AIB South Asia Conference 2026 and Professor of IIFT Kolkata. We also extend a warm welcome to all the distinguished delegates, faculty members, research scholars, students, and participants joining us from across India and abroad. To formally commence the proceedings of the AIB South Asia Conference 2026, I kindly invite all the dignitaries on the dais to step forward and light the ceremonial lamp.
Come.
Thank you to all the dignitaries for formally inaugurating the AIB South Asia Conference 2026 by lighting the ceremonial lamp. May I now request the dignitaries to take their seats? To commemorate this special occasion, we have a small token of appreciation for our distinguished guests. May I now request Professor Rangarajan to extend a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Professor Shakir Rezara, with a bouquet and a memento. Thank you, sir. May I now request Professor Sinha to welcome Professor S. Raghunath, Chair AIG South Asia Chapter Executive Board, with a bouquet and a memento.
Thank you.
Now I would request Professor Rangarajan to kindly present a bouquet and a memento to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi. May I now request Professor Chakraborty to kindly present a memento to Professor Rangarajan, Chair AIB South Asia Conference 2026 and Center Head of IIFT Kolkata. I would again request Professor Chakraborty to kindly present a memento to Professor Sinha, Co-Chair AIB South Asia Conference 2026 and Head of the Research Division IIFT Kolkata. It is my honor to introduce Professor S. Raghunath, a distinguished academician, researcher, and strategic consultant, and a cornerstone of the strategy area at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, until his retirement in 2020. A postdoctoral fellow from Stanford University's Graduate School of Business, Professor Raghunath is internationally recognized for his expertise in digital business strategy and strategic leadership. His global academic engagements include visiting appointments at the premier institutions such as HEC Paris, Toulouse Business School, and the University of Buckingham. At IIM Bangalore, he held several key leadership roles, including Dean of Administration, Chairperson of NSRCEL, and the Chairperson of the Center for Corporate Governance and Citizenship, making significant contributions to institutional development and entrepreneurship. A leader in executive education, he has designed and delivered specialized programs across sectors and was the recipient of the Top 10 Best Teachers Award for Executive Education. Beyond academia, Professor Raghunath has served as an independent director on the boards of leading public sector banks, advised CEOs of global multinational corporations, and currently serves as the chairman of the South Asia Board of the Academy of International Business. Sir, we are honored to have you with us today. May I now invite you to deliver the welcome address?
Good morning and welcome to all of you, distinguished delegates, respected scholars, and dear friends and colleagues from the AIB Executive Board here in South Asia, as well as members of our advisory council, Professor Sumit Kundu, and Professor Elizabeth Rose, who has been around with us for the longest time, and a very big hand to all of them, including our host in IIFT. It is indeed my pleasure to be part of these proceedings in the annual conference for 2026 of the South Asia Board of the Academy of International Business. But before I say anything about what we are going to do, I would like to acknowledge the host institution, the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, for hosting this conference and partnering with us in this quest for knowledge and leadership in the area of thought-provoking research. I would like to say a few things about the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. Indian Institute of Foreign Trade is one of the finest institutes of higher learning in South Asia. It is very well known for its intellectual rigor, its institutional aspiration, and its openness to ideas from the world, for which I think we must give them a very big hand. Let me begin by asking a very, very simple question. Now that we are all very interested in, I think this podium is kind of biased towards people who are on the other side and not towards the guys who are sitting on almost behind me. So is that okay now? You are not looking at my posterior, but at my front, right? Thank you so much. So I wanted to say that if we are looking at international business scholarship over the years, it has always been predicated by a world which believed in global integration, which believed in technological options, which had relatively very well accepted institutional norms and standards. That is not a world that we exist in anymore. Here is a world where intelligence is increasingly artificial, where borders, physical borders of countries have become increasingly consequential. Just look at this advent of humanity, which does great progress in artificial intelligence, but has very minimal common sense in including everybody in this world. Right? So that's a very different thing that we are facing. And the third thing is that we have very fragile trust on human beings and increasing trust in algorithms, which possibly also have their own bias. So if we were to ask the question as to how do we remain relevant as international business scholars, the question is, what is it that we will contribute in this emerging scenario? An emerging scenario where decision making is increasingly algorithmic, a scenario where geopolitical tensions are a much more stronger variable, which was hitherto never so in terms of any research design that you would create, and societies which are highly impatient. Patience, focus, deep interest, and a commitment, a dogged commitment to separate fiction from reality is something that we are, as a human race, gradually handing it over to algorithmic discovery. It's not a bad thing. But the point here is that as international business scholars in South Asia, what is the relevance that we create in theory and practice in this dimension? And I say that because if you want to look at global change, which is happening all over, started with something that humanity never wished for, COVID-19. But then it has never, this is a different kind of COVID that we are facing today, right? So all these things which are completely uncontrollable and nobody knows where the hell it all goes. In that kind of a context of global change, South Asia, if you look at the countries in South Asia, and we'll have scholars here who are going to tell you more about it. We are absorbing, we are improvising, and we are also redefining what is relevant to humanity at large. Innovation was always a pursuit for all research scholars. It's a very nice thing to go after, right? Value innovation today is much more relevant than innovation per se. And let me define, all of you know about value innovation. Value innovation is more about, is there a quantum leap in value for the majority of potential customers, consumers, and clients in this world than just looking at a certain strata or segment in society? And starting from what we all know as our digital infrastructure, right? We all know this. The unified system that we have created in terms of digital identity, digital payments, and data transfer, consent-based data transfer, is something that almost 10 countries, including Saudi Arabia, are now embracing, piloting, and implementing. Should you not clap for this? But that clap is very deep. You guys think that our unified payment system is something that we need? Countries are figuring out that value innovation was never a norm, I can tell you this, and you all know enough about literature. It's something that has started in South Asia, gradually spreading. Obviously, it will take a lot of time. Countries in Europe are experimenting and looking at it and all of that. But this is something that South Asia, because of its ability to constantly redefine in terms of contextual relevance, it has been able to deliver that value to the socially disadvantaged as well as people like us who have the ability to wear clothes and eat our food so that we don't go hungry. And in that context, if you look not just at the digital infrastructure, but also platform-based entrepreneurship, and a whole host of changes that we bring in, which goes under the title of frugal innovation, is something that has emerged from the South Asian context. So as researchers in international business, generally our tendency has been to use South Asian data for only testing empirically whatever research design that we create. When would we develop the courage, the confidence, the focus to create theory which originates from this territory? You don't think that these are important things you think on a table of life? Please believe in yourself. I say this because all of us are so thinking about how many citations did I get, will I get, etc. Of course, that's very important. But it is also very important that not just to really look at the number of citations that your publication gets, but also if that is impactful in terms of changing leadership in an emerging dimension, which is complicated, confusing, and contextualized in terms of a contextualized relevance. It is we who can actually get into that and create it. Now, having said all of this, all that I'm trying to tell you all is that please believe in yourselves. Please believe in your ability to create contextually relevant theory. And of course, continue your journey as testing, whatever hypothesis you want, you continue in all of that. But make sure that the number of scholars that emerge from South Asia grow in the international business domain. I wish you all a great conference and wish you all the very best.
Thank you, sir, for your warm welcome and your discussions on how world is evolving with AI. And in such scenario, research scholars must learn to survive by adding their valuable innovations and for setting the tone for the conference. Now it is my privilege to introduce Professor K. Rangarajan, Professor of Strategy at the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade and Head of the Kolkata campus. With over 3 decades of experience spanning academia, consultancy, and industry, Professor Rangarajan has been teaching international business strategy to postgraduate students, working executives, and policymakers, and has also conducted faculty development programs under the aegis of the Strategic Management Forum. He is the founder head of the Center for MSME Studies at IIFT, a university medalist, and hold a doctoral degree in the area of his specialization. An accredited management teacher conferred by the All India Management Association, Professor Rangarajan is a widely published scholar and author of books and case studies, and has also served on the boards and academic councils of leading institutions. His experience also includes professional engagements with multinational corporations and overseas universities. He has served as a national expert for UNIDO, ILO, and the Commonwealth Secretariat, led SME capacity development programs across the Mekong region, served as an independent director on the board of the State Trading Corporation of India. He is also associated with key policy bodies of CII and FICCI and is a member of the steering committee for export promotion of the government of West Bengal. Professor Rangarajan is also the vice chairman of the AIB South Asia chapter and a member of the core group on textile exports constituted by the Ministry of Textiles, Government of India. may I now request you to kindly deliver the inaugural address.
Lakshminatha Samarambham Nadayam Yamana Madhyamam Asmatacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Salutations to all the gurus in the research conference and very good morning to all of you. Professor Raghunath, Chair, AIB Chapter. Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, Vice Chancellor, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. Professor Zara, my core team members, Professor Dipankar, Professor Devashish, and also, more importantly, Professor Sumit Kundu, who is always a support on all our research efforts, and the other members who are present over here, the members of the board of AIB South Asia chapter, the participants, the delegates who are going to present. Our association with Academy of International Business, South Asia chapter, even it was not, when South Asia chapter was not there, we started our journey with Academy of International Business somewhere in mid-2000s. That's where first we hosted AIB. I think it is in Shimla, we did the first conference. And after that, we hosted the workshop in Kolkata before COVID, the research workshop which we used to do. And now we got the opportunity to host this conference in Kolkata campus. In fact, to be in research, this is the most opportune time, what I feel. To be a researcher, this is the most opportune time. In our times, we used to just go on looking for what could be a research problem, then again and again we'll be looking into rural development and agricultural development, industrial development, and doing those kind of statistics. Now you look at the kind of problems which are being faced, be it in business, the kind of a global business landscape, day in and day out, you find that there are a lot of geopolitical changes which are happening, which has a huge impact on the way in which business has to be conducted. Nevertheless, you always find the businessman find their own kind of a logic and try to continue with the way in which they want to operate. That is also more important. That gives us a lot of opportunities to probe as to how these kind of, we talk about flexibility, how these people make it flexible. In fact, I was more amazed to see a paper also which talks about, generally in policy circles, we say formal enterprises are important, and if it is informal, then we try to convert them into formality. But I saw a paper which says how being informal can improve the performance of a firm. Look at the way in which now the young researchers are trying to probe the things and try to establish those kind of facts. It's an interesting, that is why I said it's an excellent time to be in research, especially with more and more digital support available for data, etc. But the only caution is there is a compromise which you need to make, whether you want to just do research or you want to make some meaningful contribution through research. Because there is a high need for applied research. Because you know that, see, I can just go on counting so many instances. Suddenly, see, last month, Indigo has not only grounded, they grounded others also. Then the business implications have started coming up. Are we moving towards a duopoly? Then is it because of the policy mistakes? Is it because of the way in which the supply and demand acts? Or is it because that more and more demand is there for now air travel? See, there are so many, but the thing is, ultimately, there is a disturbance. And yesterday again we have seen that the trade agreements, etc. Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi was talking about India, Oman, free trade, etc. Yesterday I saw that Venezuela is occupied. That is the free trade. Probably the disturbances which are happening, the kind of social and other implications what they may be having, but they are some of those important things which gives the researchers a lot of opportunities to probe and come out with the way in which such things are to be addressed. The uncertainties, the classrooms in the even I saw a lot of such papers which are coming on studying the VUCA, what kind of an uncertainty, how these uncertainties are there, etc. But still, what is the solution? Where do we move? How do we move? Especially in the current political scenario across the globe. Will South Asia be able to influence the global path? Professor Raghunath was asking that it is high time that we need to come out with original concepts which are emanating from countries in South Asia. I do agree with that because we started adapting a different kind of an approach which now may be looked at by others also. Be it in financial services, be it in addressing some of the crisis, whether it is in defense or it is in IT, the way in which we have started addressing the crisis, they are all lessons. It is high time that the practices what has been made now needs to be conceptualized. That is where the researchers and their contribution is highly required. In this conference, we are not only focusing on the generic international trade issues or some of the functional issues. One of the focus is about sustainability. Sustainability has now become the buzzword. Everyone is now looking into sustainability. There are a lot of, in fact, the way in which sustainability is getting connected to various issues. I saw that one of the papers which was talking about how the non-tariff barriers, which are more and more because of the sustainability issues, may not only help the destination countries but also the origin countries. They have established it in the papers. It's nice. It's really wonderful to see such kind of researchers who are coming up, and I hope that we will be able to further look into the sustainability issue, though it is more being researched, but we are also witness as a general public the way in which Middle East is getting flooded. Now, on the other day, I was told that North India has not received that kind of a rainfall which is required during a winter, probably, which may be impacting the wheat production. Is it because of climate change? Is that climate change is going to now change the direction of not only the cropping pattern, etc., but also the trade flows? There are a lot of such issues which are coming up, of course. The young researchers now need to get into those kind of critical thinking, and probably I think that will be helpful. And platforms like this always are there. So IIFT as an institution is always there to encourage such researchers through platforms like AIB, so that you may be able to share and network with the other researchers to understand the contemporary thinking, what is going on in this area. I hope the researchers over here will be able to take full advantage of that. And I wish all the best to this conference in the next 2 days. We may be able to deliberate on some of the things. And one more thing, for the first time, I'm very happy that with the trigger by Professor Elizabeth, we were able to even come out with a panel which is majorly for women. Women at the workplace, women in international business. Probably Women is also more now discussed because one of the ESG, the governance part of it and the social part of it talks about the gender, the parity, etc. So probably I think we may be able to come out with some kind of a nice discussion from people from different, women from different walks of life are going to be there in the panel. And that is, I'm very happy that it is happening in this conference for the first time from this conference onwards. I hope it will grow further with the thinking by Professor Elizabeth. With that, I wish all the best to this conference. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring and insightful address on how researchers nowadays need to contribute a lot of valuable work in research world for business in the changing geopolitical scenario. Now, I have the honor of introducing Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, to deliver the conference address. A distinguished academician, eminent author, and a renowned expert in international trade and management, Professor Joshi is the Professor and Vice Chancellor of the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. He has an outstanding academic background with education and advanced training from Harvard Business School, IIFT, the University of Rajasthan, and the National Dairy Research Institute, and is also a recipient of IIFT's prestigious gold medal. He is the author of the widely acclaimed textbooks International Marketing and International Business, published by Oxford University Press, and has also served as editor of the IIFT's flagship journal, Foreign Trade Review. Professor Joshi has led several policy-relevant research studies, worked with global institutions such as the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and UNCTAD, and conducted extensive training programs for senior government officials and diplomats in India and abroad. A recipient of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Award for lifetime contribution to economic research and policy, he is a highly respected thought leader and sought after speaker at national and international forums. So we are privileged to have you with us today. May I now request you to kindly deliver the conference address.
Thank you so much. Distinguished Professor S. Raghunath, Professor Shakhar Jahara, Professor Tarwan, who is likely to be online, my old colleague, Professor Subed, Professor Ali Javed, Professor Hemant, my colleague, Professor Rangarajan, Professor Dipankar, Professor Devashish, and a host of my other colleagues, distinguished participants, and researchers, my students. Indeed, it's a privilege to host AIB South Asia Conference 2026 at IIFT, Kolkata campus, and I'm highly grateful to Professor Raghunath, who is an old friend and mentor, Professor Kundu, and all other colleagues for giving IIFT this opportunity to host this conference. My colleague, Professor Rangarajan, with his team, has meticulously worked to make this an immense success. Professor Raghunath was reminding you again and again to clap, but you don't clap. There has been I find out a reason for that, and I told him already. Because now you are more inclined towards mobile. When you see on mobile, you don't clap. So you've forgotten how to clap. You've forgotten how to clap. And this is a very small change which the technology has made in our lives. But many more you are going to see when you come. We clap by saying that, in my generation, that, lot of transformation has taken place into the information and communication technology. Then I think COVID technology we had, but COVID transformed it, that we started online meeting online, this was never before that anybody is taking a session online or delivering or meeting. Now everything is online. So I was telling him, why you did not hold an online meeting? He says, I want physical. So things have changed. But the change we have seen, you see much more change. Because now you are in the midst of the disruptive technology, which you are not. I'm sure how you make your assignments and the research papers. You have got better tools. You can write a great research paper and publish in a star on bibliography without reading a single paper. Tools are available. Technology is a good servant, but as a master, it is monstrous. And the monster is right at your door. The topic, on South Asia, international trade environment in South Asia is more relevant today than any other point of time. We discuss about trade. Professor Rangarajan talked about VUCA. In last 5-10 years, we had a lot of conferences on VUCA, but now all VUCA taken together are behind. We have got one great man who has destabilized the established trade theories. And how FTA is being there. Sumit is smiling. Because he knows that people say that, there are many dictators in the world. And if there is a dictator, I'm told you pick them up from their home. But those who pick them up, not a single researcher in America has got courage to voice. So we are living in a highly changed atmosphere. I've got great economist friends. I don't want to name, but we have got great economists. We do a lot of calculation on FTA free trade agreement. FTA calculation, Dr. Elizabeth is there. You do, this is the trade, this is the tariff, export, import. Then you talk of reciprocal tariff, you talk of, we use, various complex econometric models to, find the trade benefit. But does any of these models include, the new realities of the global geopolitical environment? Did you ever say that, people entering into America from Mexico or any other country, I'm unable to name that. Satyam vadet mandatam na vadet satyam priyam. Such bole jhoot na bole, apri such na bole. But if I speak apri such, then I think all of you will catch my neck. And this is, I think, is being followed by the researchers in United States of America. Knowingly, they know it, but they don't speak. You put 25% tariff on India because we are buying oil from a country which is more beneficial to us. All trade theory says that, the country with the lowest, the cost competitiveness we should import. So all these things have become a reality. And what happened to Venezuela yesterday, I think the whole world knows and you do not know. America, Statue of Freedom is in New York. You know it. Everybody is free in America, but you can make anybody forget about a man, but systems can be some. Under these circumstances, South Asia, it's great that AIB is holding a conference, but I don't find anybody other than India who represent any other country in South Asia. कोई बांग्लादेश, मालदीव, कोई है हमारे पास में? Any researcher has come from any of the South Asian countries other than India? So you cannot talk about others in solidarity. वो ऐसे ही होगा, फिर ताली बजाना भूल जाओगे आप. Incidentally, I had an opportunity to work in Bangladesh for government of Bangladesh. I also had an opportunity to work in World Bank project in restructuring the export promotion mechanism in Ganatantric Republic of Bangladesh. I worked on Amdani Raftani policy in Bangladesh. So you know about Bangladesh. India is a great friend of Bangladesh. India was instrumental in supporting Mukti Bahini in 1771 when Bangladesh became independent. We enjoy great relations. But despite all this politics going on, India's trade with Bangladesh in the last year has improved to 12%. And what is very important is Pakistan is another our neighbor, the largest country in terms of population. But you don't worry, India is much bigger in population. We have overtaken China. Forget about Pakistan. India has overtaken China with 1.48 billion people. And do you know, everybody talk about China's growth. I think time has come you talk about China's decline. I tell you why. The birth rate the fertility rate is now somewhere between 1.5 1.6. Shanghai is 0.9. Alarming. That stage has not come to India. Last week, China imposed 13% taxes on all contraceptives. What China do is, I'm not very sure how sustainable it is. Because earlier they had policy of one child, now they want child. People have forgotten how to produce babies. It's a real threat to the Chinese economy. It's a real threat to the Chinese economy. And I tell you, you mark my word, in 63, 64, China came out with a policy. I'll tell you a small story. The famine in China, the shortage of the food grain in China is because of the birds. All these birds eat up food grains. So hua kya? They came out with a plan that if you kill a bird, we'll give you, some X amount of money, a fraction of yuan. So people started killing birds. Now you can test the professor on Google. They started killing birds. And I will not like to quote, but you can find it out. No birds were killed and people got money. And then a lot of birds also got killed in the meantime. And the result was, these birds were very important as a symbiotic relationship with those, the insects they used to eat. So they did not eat the insect and there was a bigger famine in China. So you brought down a policy of one child, now there is no child, now, the big challenge is how to get child and how to make people, relearn how to produce babies. But it will happen one time. When it comes to trade, India historically has been a great trade destination. As you are aware, now to South Asia, the new boundaries have come earlier. But historically, all these places were, part of a bigger India. And please understand, the people in present-day Bangladesh was famous for textile and it is still famous for textile. Because people know how to produce textile. They have integrated technology. I think 5th, 6th BC, I'm talking of BC. America did not exist. We are Indian, we are native Indian. Indian means those who are native of the place. In America, nobody is native. Everybody is imported. Everybody is immigrant. Somebody immigrated 5 years before, somebody is immigrating now. Who are immigrating now? You say you are outsider. If they come, then 50% tax, extra tax. Those immigrated 300 years before, they say that this is our country. But India, we have a small place in Madurai, you find they have excavated that you find the Roman and the Greek currencies we were trading. Great trading nation. Southeast Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, China. India was trading. And it is India's state that the Indian religion, Hindus, Buddhists, they went to Southeast Asia. You go to Bangkok, the biggest statue is Samudra Manthan. You go to Indonesia, the biggest revenue earner in service industry is Ramayana. In each of the temple, India is amazing. But the people don't know it. I'm happy that you really love it. You are required to be sent to China so as to teach them how to increase the population. Now, there is a small place in Karnataka called Vijayanagara. Now, it was a thriving trading place. And the British authors have written that gold, silver and jewelry were traded like vegetable is traded today. And it was in 1565, 23rd of January. In 3 days, war, the whole, the entire thing got destroyed. And the entire civilization of Hampi remained underground for 300 years till it was rediscovered in 1800. India is a great trading nation. And if you see the history of trade, it was much richer. It was much richer than the Britain that time. The city of Hampi was richer than the city of London. Even some of the British authors have written the city of Angor 400 years before was much richer than the city of London and much bigger. So India is a big trading nation. When it comes to South Asia, India is surrounded by countries. There is an index calculated, the failed countries index. And these countries are in the bottom of 1050. Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar, Maldives, and Sri Lanka. And success and failure is contagious. You have read the story in the childhood is, the bad company or the bad apple. So the problem is it's contagious. And it is in interest of India that these countries succeed politically, socially, and economically. The biggest barrier of over 20% import tariffs within the Southeast Asia. This trade is only 5%. SAFTA, which came with a big, bang, but after 2014, nobody knows that any meaningful, discussion happened. And in this, 80% size of the economy is India's economy. So, what is very important is that these countries trade with each other, and India can provide. Professor Raghunathan has picked up the single important factor in India's growth, which people were missing, is innovation. India has got every innovation. He talked about the digital public infrastructure. Internet rate in India is the cheapest, cheaper than United States of America or most any other country. India taught people to scan and make payment. We make, the companies like the digital transaction company. So which the transaction used to pass completely in daylight. The most other countries, including the countries like Saudi Arabia, are adapting it, low cost. And this enables each one of us, the traders, the business people, the researchers, to leverage upon it. India is a country which has brought out the people out of the poverty faster than any other country. India's infrastructure development is an envy for the whole world. Our turnaround time in our ports is better or equal than most other countries. You just see the logistics, the improvement that we have done. And still, the World Bank data says that logistics is diluted. There are problems. India is a big country. India is not Singapore. Singapore is less than the size of a colony in Kolkata. Check it out. 3 million people. 3.5 million people. India, when you talk of English, India has got, 3 to 4 times more English speakers than America has got. 1.48% population, 20% is speaking, 20 to 25. How much is 25 crore people I am telling you. India is amazing. Incidentally, India also has got the largest higher education system in the world, with almost 50,000 colleges, 1,500 universities. India is amazing. But I think this conference, IIFT has also integrated now. We have got now 4 campuses: Delhi, Kolkata, Kakinada, and Gift City. Our faculty is available across campuses. They also travel across campuses, and we specialize in the area of international trade. And therefore, this conference, which talks of, amid the challenging environment, Pakistan, you know about it, but Donald Trump wants to export petroleum from Pakistan to India, a country which is dependent for 85% of its requirement on import. May God bless them. पानी से कभी ना कभी तो शायद तेल निकल ही जाएगा. India is also dependent on that. But I think India, and despite of all this, our exports have not declined. We have made new alliances. We have signed FTAs with Oman. We signed FTA with UK. We signed FTA with New Zealand. So we are, however small, but we are making alliances, newer alliances. Indian economy growth is 8.2, 8.1. We are the fastest growing large economy in the world even now. While I think the researchers America says that India is a dead economy, I completely doubt their competence. Either they are incompetent or they are so afraid to tell the truth. Elizabeth is smiling. No intellectuals agree with each other, so kindly don't agree with me. And thank you so much. Namaskar. And sir,
Thank you, sir, for your encouraging and thought-provoking words on how technology is changing the environment and on how international trade in South Asia is more relevant now today than any other time. Now, it is my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Shaki Zahra, Robert E. Buck Chair of Entrepreneurship at the Carlson School of Management, University of Minnesota, USA. Professor Zahra is a professor of strategy and entrepreneurship at the Carlson School of Management, University of Minnesota. He has previously served as department chair, director of the Home Center for Entrepreneurship, academic co-director of Carlson Ventures Enterprises, and founding co-director of the University of Minnesota's Center for Integrative Leadership. Prior to joining Minnesota, he was the Paul T. Babson Distinguished Professor of Entrepreneurship at Babson College and Professor of Strategy and Entrepreneurship at Georgia State University. Professor Zahra has held visiting and chaired professorships across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, including chaired positions in China and the Netherlands. Professor Zahra's research focuses on entrepreneurship and innovation in science and technology-based industries, with particular emphasis on the role of technology in global competition. He is widely published in leading journals, and his work is among the most highly cited in his field. He has served on more than 25 journal editorial boards in multiple capacities and has guest edited over 20 special issues. In addition, he has delivered more than 90 keynote addresses at national and international conferences. Professor Zahra is the recipient of the Global Award for Entrepreneurship Research and has received 7 honorary PhDs from universities in Belgium, Italy, Germany, Spain, and Sweden. He has also earned numerous awards for excellence in teaching and PhD mentorship. Sir, it is an honor to have you with us today. May I now invite you to deliver the keynote address.
It's wonderful to be here today, and you do not have to applaud. These guys need applaud. I do not need applaud.
No more applauding.
No more applaud. But actually, I must admit, I agree with the speakers that India is great. Southeast Asia has an incredible, tremendous potential. The question is not the potential. The question is how to change that potential into realization, into actual things. So my doctors in the United States are Indian. My best friends are Indian. The best people I think of in my field are Indian. I ask myself, what will happen to the United States economy if they leave and come back to India? The United States economy will suffer badly. The question on the other side is if they come to India, What kind of jobs will they have? Will the Indian economy absorb them? Will you guys welcome them back, correct? I assume you would, because they're part of the intellectual life of this country. But that's the issue I think Southeast Asia is having. With the changing world around the continent or subcontinent, there are a lot of opportunities, and the question becomes where to go from here. So the topic of my presentation is really stolen from me again about the change in world order. And I think sometimes there's an old TV show called The Twilight Zone, where you wake up and you don't know if you're living fiction or reality, and you actually are caught in your past and you never escape from it. Sometimes when I get up in the morning and I start watching the news, I know I'm in the twilight zone, because the world order that I have known for many, many years, we were able to travel freely, we were able to study abroad, we're able to connect and communicate, we're able to trade. All of this is coming to bad, ugly end in some cases. So the new world order, of course, is, as we all know, many rivalries, a lot of trade, tariffs. I remember from my economics classes in Egypt. I grew up in Egypt. I studied my undergraduate degree in Egypt. The professor told me to mention that tariffs do not work, but the United States has imposed tariffs on 60 countries and more are coming. Protectionism, but one of the big problems now is techno-globalism, where countries are trying to hide technology from each other. They are trying to sabotage each other's technologies. And we have seen the United States and China in particular engaged in this. And that's actually going to stifle innovation. The professors talked about India needing innovation. Innovation thrives on mobility of people, mobility of ideas, mobility of capital, because that's what creates opportunities for innovation, not only in terms of creation of innovation, but exploitation and commercialization of technologies, and turning these innovations into businesses that improve the quality of life for society. The professor was quite right about the value innovation is the innovation that actually improves the life of many, but not only the few. And that's what innovation is all about. And that's what we have we have seen in the last 25 years. The bigger innovations actually lifted or uplifted millions, in fact, billions of people around the globe. I go to China almost every year, and I've been doing that for the last 20 some years. And you see actually the change. You see the uplifting of people because of the technology, because of the technological innovations. I'm sure it's happening in India, it's happening in many other countries, as the professors have spoken. One of the biggest changes that has taken place or is taking place because of the rivalries, as we all know, is the change in supply chain. And actually that creates a lot of tensions for some countries, but for Southeast Asia and India in particular, I think there is a lot of opportunities there, because now there is this movement, China plus one, meaning that every company is trying to find another source of supplies besides traditional market, suppliers in China. But for this to materialize, to take again the benefits that arise from this, obviously there is a need to spend more time in educating the labor force and preparing them for the new market, adoption of new innovative models, not only in terms of process innovation, product innovation, but in terms of administrative structures, and of course, the shift into green manufacturing. The professors talked about sustainability. Sustainability is a big issue, especially for not only this region, but many of the emerging economies, because that's where they can bypass the old catch up and they can leapfrog the competition. They can leapfrog well-established economies in doing this. And they do have a lot of incentives to do this, to preserve the resources, to improve the quality of life, to create jobs, and so on. So, of course, the changes that I've just mentioned actually could have some negative effects in terms of the region, especially South Asia. There is already some evidence that there is some decline overall. India is doing well, as the two professors have mentioned. Everybody loves India here today, correct? We all love India, so we're not going to change that. But there is a little bit of slower growth, and that's expected to continue for the next couple of years. Again, part of it is because of the tariffs, the change, the shift in relationships, the lack of trust. There are increased costs in terms of operations, which will make some of these countries even less competitive than before. And there is always the big concern about the increased risk. Increased risk not only about doing business, but also attracting foreign direct investment. The region does not do as well in attracting foreign direct investment, which is a source of ideas, capital, and so on, and innovation, and that can actually stimulate growth. So it's a kind of vicious cycle. When you close the door, you don't have a lot of ideas, you don't have money, you don't have all of this, and that can stifle innovation, and that can perpetuate lack of growth. The Southeast, and one of the things that when I started to put my slides together, one of the things that really surprised me about Southeast Asia, it has all of the good things that you need. It is the best producer of intellectual capital. All you have to do is to look into the journals. Most of the journals, articles are written by Indians, correct? And I ask myself, why are they living abroad, correct? But that's one of the key things. No offense intended. I live abroad, but and these are my friends, and these are the kind of discussions my friends and I have, correct? They do bring money to the country, they bring connections, they all the stuff that the diaspora effect is really very important. But again, there's a significant loss of this. Of course, the region has incredible resources, but one of the key things about the region also, it does lack political stability in some places, which can actually make it difficult to invest long term in adoption of new technology, in making the infrastructural changes in terms of having real serious commitment. So one of the things I talk about in my classes in terms of economic development, some countries don't do very well. It's not because they have the wrong plan, but they lack the political will. The political will meaning long-term sustained investment with a vision to bring about change over a period of time and engage the citizenship in terms of doing this. So one of the things the question that I asked myself is this part of the world kind of able and to absorb all of the opportunities that are being opened? I'm being positive about the change happening in the global place. If these opportunities are there and you're able to sustain it, actually, when you look into the literature, you actually find that political instability is a big concern, which makes investments in the region kind of shaky. Correct? There are weak institutions. Again, there are theories about the role of institutions in economic development, and we have some new theories that say, well, actually, informality is a good thing because it allows people to take the risk. You bypass the cost of bureaucracy and all of this stuff. So again, informality, again, in terms of the sector, again, it makes it difficult to plan ahead and coordinate the economy. Even though this region, especially India, has spent a lot of money in infrastructure development, there are structural gaps and skill gaps that make difficult for the country and the region to capitalize on the opportunities opened by the changing global marketplace. So despite the major progress that has been done, then if you look into some of the statistics, you can get a different idea about how the region is doing internationally. So let me show some slides, and you can, I'm sure you know all of this, but I just sometimes when you look into the slides, when you're sitting down, it's different from when you're writing your paper for the reviewers. So this is a comparison between Southeast Asia and different regions, and in terms of economic development measured by GDP improvement and so on. It doesn't really matter how you measure it, you'll find that the region still lags. Again, some countries like India are doing much better, others are not. Nepal, for example, Bangladesh is remain really stagnant. If you look into regional GDP growth, which is another indication of productivity, again, an improvement, the region has improved over a period of time, but it fluctuates over time again, sometimes because of the economic cycle, sometimes because of the political cycle. If you look into technological capability, and that's from the World Bank, and they use multiple measures in terms of the investment in new technology, adoption of new technology operations, and so on, the region seems to lag. Again, India is always the exception that stands out in the region, and that's something we all need to acknowledge. If you look into innovation outputs, again, the same thing. Again, innovation outputs, it could be patents, it could be products, it could be services, new services, and so on. Again, sales from new products. Again, the region seems to do less than more poorly than other things. In terms of labor productivity, which is another key indicator for in terms of how the economy is doing and what's driving progress, again, there is some improvement, especially than some other regions, but again, it fluctuates. Part of this is actually because of the global economy open all of these opportunities, and these countries were trying to capitalize on this, and they invested in new technology, adopted new technology, improved, especially in India, investment in STEM kind of education and so on. That has really improved quite a bit. If you look into institutions stability, I already talked about this a couple of times. Actually, by any measure, it looks like that's one of the big problems in comparison to other sectors. And institutional stability is because it helps you in terms of attracting capital, attracting foreign investment, building relationships, also sustain attention to economic goals and so on. In terms of, here's something that I thought was really interesting in terms of spending on military as part of the GDP, which goes hand in hand with actually political instability. It's quite high relative to some other regions. And again, we know about the regional tensions that have been with us for a while. So South Asia, then in general, especially India, has made major strides and moving away from, and they have done this by moving away actually from the Western style economic development. Actually, I think part of the reason is that they have learned quite a bit from watching Southeast Asian countries. I'll talk about this briefly in a second. They have seen Japan come to prominence, Korea, Singapore, even Taiwan, and China. Each one of them had their own kind of mix of policies and different this and that, but they actually have one thing in common. They realize that traditional economic theory does not always work, especially in the Asian context, and you need actually to contextualize your development plan and kind of build around your own skill base and so on. So the traditional model, this is Roscoe's old model. I actually studied this many, many years ago. It's kind of a ladder approach. You need to invest in this and this, and the focus on this is to create surplus, which is capital accumulation, that you invest in new technology, you invest in hiring people, expanding facility, and that allows you to build up capital and so on. And that's traditionally the model, but it requires very strong presence by the state, it requires strong formal institutions, it requires very careful methodical planning, and does not always work very well. I keep moving fast. So if you think about the change that has been happening in the region for a while, and I think this is really a welcome change, and I think the two professors were being optimistic about this, is because of this. We're seeing the traditional model being replaced by a more South Asian model, where a few years ago the focus was on agriculture and so on. Now we're seeing a political transformation, service-based or net growth, and actually focus more on more sustainability issues and green manufacturing. Again, exporting is a big issue. I have some statistics about this, and actually the region does not do as well in exporting as one would expect, given the size of the economies involved. So this is one of the kind of things that you need to think about. So with the new formula, that if you wanted to infer a formula across these regions, the foundations are capability over capital. I'll talk about each one of these. Knowledge accumulation. I think the first speaker here, my friend who invited me, talked a lot about intelligence. Intelligence, not only artificial intelligence, human intelligence behind that, the ability to create things, the ability to envision things. That's where the knowledge, that's where competition is all about, correct? That's why the United States attracts the best and the brightest and keeps them there, and hopefully because of this, the knowledge accumulation. The leapfrogging rather than the catch-up. A lot of people in the IB talk about moving away from the catch-up model. Then the ecosystem focus, And of course, imagination is far more better than imitation. I'll talk briefly about each one of these. So in terms of the uh, if you look into this graph to the right, okay, you probably wonder what this is. This is the Human Development Index, which is the summative index that tells you how well developed the human beings in a given country, correct? In terms of their education, healthcare, and all of these things. You find that the region is actually lower than most of the regions in the studies that are being done. So, but in the focus here is that you really don't need only money. You need to get the skill. You need to develop capability. Capability is what it takes to build a new economy. Japan, I mean, C.K. made this very famous many years ago about talking about core competencies for the companies, but the same argument applies in his book, Competing for the Future. He talks about this again. Some of the most important work about capability building was done by Indians, for example. So the idea there is a lot of learning. You need to learn fast. You need to be able to incorporate this learning into your processes and translate this into activities. The activities that allow you to create new ideas, generate different products and services and so on. So it's not only money. Money can take you far. You need the money for sure to build the infrastructure, to hire people, to reward them, and all of this stuff. But capability building, it takes a lot more than this. So in that context, learning fast how you build the global economy or global company or the global country and the global economy. In Kodama, for example, in his work on Japanese multinationals, talks a lot about how Japan learned from all of these experiences. And they were able to learn fast and could build this into their processes and diffuse it within the economy across different industries. Professor Kim from Korea talked about this and his book From Imitation to Innovation. That explains that speed of learning, which really became a strategic issue. Again, that requires learning not only how to do things, but learning where to focus your attention and how to build the kind of right capabilities, how you integrate them, how you combine them to be able to convey. The knowledge reintegration. Somebody kind of cynical said you don't start from scratch. If you really wanted to innovate, you need to build on what we know and then add your stuff. Of course, that's one type of model. Another model, of course, is blue sky, blue ocean, the kind of envisioning of things that do not exist. Again, but the idea is being able to combine, to innovate. Some people argue that multinational companies exist simply because of their ability to integrate products better than any ideas and knowledge better than anything else. The same applies for countries. For some countries, Japan, Korea, Singapore, all of these countries have been able to take ideas that will develop elsewhere. Then from there, they build their own kind of unique capabilities over a period of time. So leapfrogging is meaning you need to move beyond simply catching up with the big powers, if you will. You need to customize your own learning. You need to build your own technology and move fast beyond the learning model. So how do we do all of these things? Building the knowledge base, building the capabilities, and leapfrogging. That requires attention to education. Again, if you look into spending in education in the region, it's okay, but it's not as great as other regions, correct? India does better, correct? Again, I keep saying that, not because I'm in India, but in fact, it is. That's the one way out in terms of if you really have to spend money in an emerging economy or any economy, education, especially more and more in terms of STEM research, okay? So part of the learning is not, you need to also diversify the curriculum in terms of making entrepreneurship as a central piece of that, correct? It's not only abstract learning, it's actually doing, learning by doing. Again, more and more collaborative learning, and we know that from the entrepreneurship classes that we all teach. I wanted not to skip this one, actually. One other way to catch up very quickly and move beyond catching up to leapfrogging is actually foreign direct investment. That graph is really a funny graph, but this is the percentage, that's the share of FDI, foreign direct investment, by the countries in the region over a period of time. You find it's kind of small. The graph actually is, if you look into relative to other regions, okay, it does not do as well. India is still, again, has the lion's share in that. So foreign direct investment is increasing, but the share of the countries in the region is also rising, but not at the same pace as other things. The reason why I keep bringing a foreign direct investment is what I said earlier. It's a source of not only of money, but ideas and intellectual capital and relationships that allow you to envision things, collaborative ventures, joint ventures, and so on. Technology transfer, technology diffusion, all of these things that are really, really important. And that's why when we started the conversation, the new world order is enemy of that, correct? That's kind of trying to kill the mobility of people, ideas, and money around the globe. And that really is going to be dangerous, not only for this region, but for other regions as well. So one of the things that more and more countries, especially in Southeast Asia, and actually the other countries as well, but more so, is that focus on building ecosystems. You see all of these high technology ecosystems in this city, in other cities, in India and other places. And the idea there is that you want it to become at least a leader or a major contender in one area. That's where you build on the relationships, you wanted to foster collaboration, you wanted to foster synergy, and you wanted to build this recombinative ability that allows you to build new things and move faster. This is very different from the traditional industrial policy where a country like Singapore said, okay, we have one or two industries we're going to focus on, and they did a good job in information technology. But then what? What comes next? Okay, so for Singapore, which is small, as we all have been reminded, that's a good strategy. But for a country like India of the size of China, it becomes very, very different ball game. So part of this is that there is orchestration, but at the same time, there's a lot of autonomy. People are coming up with ideas, innovation, and then becoming much more supportive of their activities. This is my favorite slide. Imagination is better than over imitation. I think this is one of the key things that if you look into, I studied quite a bit about Japan and Korea. So one of the key lessons from the experience is, yes, you can copy, you can imitate, you can lie, you can cheat, you can do all of these things. You can license, but somewhere along the way, you have to build the mindset to create and invent your own stuff. Otherwise, the marketplace is not going to welcome you. I think that's why your comments resonate very well. So, but to do this, you really have to develop local knowledge, local expertise. What is new about this? I saw this presentation on YouTube by a Nobel Prize winner. He said, the marketplace does not care who you are. They care about what you have to offer. So if you offer a product that sells, he said, who cares about Taiwan, for example? Sorry about if you, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but they do have this silicon-based little product that everybody wants, and now they're strategically relevant. Okay, Singapore, again, a small little island, and it became, so you really have to learn that Japan and Korea became prominent by moving away from imitation to innovation. I think that's one of the key challenges now. What is uniquely Indian that will be a product? And I think that's where sustainability can be a great, great place for a lot of inventions, a lot of innovations, because there are a lot of different skills already, especially in India, in the country that you can capitalize on. Okay, this means that there is a need to shift the role of the state from managing the economy to being an entrepreneurial state, like an investor in the future, if you will. Like instead of military, I know I'm a pacifist, so I can say that. Instead of military, spend it in education about entrepreneurship in terms of, again, making all of these connections that you need to do to kind of foster the development of new ideas and bring them to the market. So in conclusion, this is a roadmap here, a summary. One is that you really need to think about building the strategic, capable coordinated state. The state should not be the coordinator of the economy, but coordinator of the orchestration of the system, so ecosystems. You need to kind of develop a focus on knowledge creation, and that means development of human capital in the region. You really need to think about industrial policy as a way of kind of inducing innovation rather than controlling the flow of knowledge, if you will. You need to strengthen the SMEs and global economy and their role in the global economy and entrepreneurial companies and connect them with the larger economies. I have not talked much about this, but I write about this quite a bit. And again, you need to think about FDI not as a way of exploitation, which is sometimes it is, but it's a way of bringing in new knowledge and incorporating it into account. You need to build the absorptive capacity of the economy. That's not my vocabulary, actually. If you look into your chat GPT, that will tell you this. And the best way to learn to do that is to build the knowledge base within the economy. Thank you very much, and I'm grateful for having me. Really good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for intellectual and enriching address on how South Asian countries are doing better in innovation and intellectual properties, which are helping them to grow over time. We are now honored to hear from the global leadership of the Academy of International Business. It is my pleasure to introduce Professor Torben Pedersen, President of Academy of International Business and Professor of Global Strategy at Copenhagen Business School, Denmark, to deliver the AIB President's Address. We are pleased to inform you that Professor Torben Pedersen, President of the Academy of International Business, has shared a video message with us. We shall now play his message for the audience. Before that, a brief introduction. Professor Pedersen is a professor of global strategy at Copenhagen Business School. His research interests lie at the intersection of international business and strategy. He has published over 100 articles and books, and his research has appeared in prominent journals such as the Academy of Management Journal, the Strategic Management Journal, the Journal of Management, the Journal of International Business Studies, and so on. In addition, he has written more than 25 teaching cases published at case clearing houses. He is an elected fellow of the Academy of International Business, the Strategic Management Society, and the European International Business Association. He is the founding editor of Global Strategy Journal and serves on numerous editorial boards. Now I would ask our IT team to play his video.
Hello, everyone in Kolkata. So, my name is Torben Pedersen, and I'm president of the Academy of International Business, AIB, and it's a great pleasure for me to give a keynote address to your conference in the AIB chapter of South Asia. The chapters is one of the important pillars of AIB because the chapters is gathering IB scholars locally to talk about local issues, exactly as you do here at your conference in South Asia. The topic I will talk about today is geopolitical turbulence in the world and the need for IB research. But before I do that, just a few words about the AIB family, which you are part of. We have more than 3,500 members all over the world. In all corners of the world, you can say we have colleagues, IB scholars, and you can say AIB is there in order to promote knowledge sharing and about research, teaching, service, and all the things that goes with the scholarship. And this year, 25 was actually a record setting of our activities. We had over 40 events that has been coordinated by chapters like your chapters, special interest groups, and our journals. We are running 3 different journals: Journal of International Business Studies, Journal of International Business and Politics and AIB Insights. And we have many very engaged members of AIB, and you can say AIB's strength is members like you, your curiosity, collegiality, and commitment to high quality research that informs the world of international business. So we have a very vibrant AIB family, which you're all part of. And with this introduction to AIB, I will move into talking about the topic of the world today. I will start a little bit by going back in time in order to understand the world of today. You can see the graph here where we are looking at, you can say, trade as a share of global GDP. So it's, you can say on the y-axis, we have the trade as a share of GDP, and on the x-axis in the bottom, we have the years starting from 1970 and until our time. What is, you can say, basically, it's a graph showing something about the divide between activities happening across, or activities, trade, in this case, trade that is taking place across borders versus locally inside borders. And we can see that there has been a clear trend of increasing the trade as a share of GDP, meaning more and more, you can say, cross-border activities when it comes to trade. And you can see, as marked here, this is the period we talk about globalization, where we really had that more and more activities was crossing borders. Some people even called it hyperglobalization, what was going on there. So, and that was very much driven by, on one hand, technological changes, and on the other hand, political changes. So these two types of changes in the world was going hand in hand and driving this wave of globalization. We had technological changes was related to increased efficiency of information technology. The whole internet wave and things like that was happening in those decades. Also this about, you can say, increased efficiency of transportation and logistics. You can say it became much cheaper to send to send goods across the globe, from Asia to Europe, from Asia to North America, and the other way around. You can say with container ships. So phenomenal technological changes in those decades, and that was, you can say, matched with political changes, opening of new markets. China, India, Central and Eastern Europe, actually, you can say, countries that are covering areas covering 2/3 of the population in the world, liberalization of trade and financial flows, like we have seen in Europe. Basically, you can say a lot of the political changes was about establishing rules for cross-border flows, like you had WTO and so forth. There was a common understanding, political understanding, that trade was to the benefit of all of us. It was so-called a win-win, where we could exploit division of labor between the different regions. So that was, you can say some of the important drivers of globalization. But having said that, of course, it was not it was the companies that was actually using the different opportunities that was created by the drivers of technological changes and political changes. So companies like we see here, this is a Boeing, we have here a Boeing airplane, where we see all the different parts, how you can say the airplane has been disaggregated into the different parts, like the engine, the passenger doors, the software in the plane, and so forth. An airplane consists of more than 12,000 different pieces. And what Boeing and other, you can say, airplane makers have done is that they have aggregated and fine sliced the product, and then they have actually placed the production of the different parts of the product in the parts of the world where it's most efficient. So Boeing, like many other companies, have been taking advantage of the opportunities provided by the technical changes and the political changes we saw before. It's not the countries and not the politicians that actually that move goods across borders. It's the companies that actually act on the opportunities that has been provided. And here we come back to our graph about the share of trade as a share of global GDP, because as we have seen the part of the globalization, we also see that in the recent years, actually starting a little bit from the financial crisis in 2008, we see that we don't see the constant increase here. We see that the graph becomes more flat and things like that. So the question is now, what is going on now? And you can say, here is another graph showing a little bit of what's going on. This is a graph showing something about you can say how companies assess uncertainty, or you might say it's a graph showing that how many times the word uncertainty and similar words are listed in the business press. And what we can see here, there's a general over these years, there's a general trend that uncertainty becomes higher. The frequency of uncertainty mentioned in the business press is increasing, and also we can see the distance in years between the peaks we see here becomes shorter. So we have more uncertainty and more frequent that big uncertainty events is happening here. So clearly something is changing in the environment with more uncertainty. And you can say, what are these changes? There's actually a number of changes that is happening in the context. You can say one is that we get geopolitical tensions with armed conflicts. We are moving away from this rule-based world I talked about before. So now we're not following the same rules of how to move activities and have trade across borders. The rules that was applied before does not apply anymore. You can say there's also increasing pressure for climate change and environmental regulation, where you can say companies, they start to be responsible for both their own behavior, but also behavior that goes beyond the boundaries of their own firm. So they also get responsible for what's going on in their supply chain of when it comes to CSR and environmental behavior and things like that. And we also see significant technological changes and innovation. We see digitalization, we see traceability increasing, blockchain, we see artificial intelligence. And so we actually see a lot of changes, you can say, in the environment of companies in these years. And you can say when companies are asked about, you can say, the risk, there's a big survey has been made between more than 4,000 companies where they have been asked about the likelihood and impact of different risks in 2026. And we can see here, you can say the dangerous corner in this 2x2 matrix, we see here that on one axis, it go from low impact to high impact. that is the horizontal axis, and the vertical axis goes from low likelihood to high likelihood. So the dangerous corner is the one in the upper right corner, where you can say you have high impact and high likelihood. And unfortunately, that is also where most of the companies actually place, you can say, some of the event, the uncertain event here that they're fearing going into 26. So in that sense, you can say, and we clearly have moved from a stable world where with increasing globalization to a much more uncertainty world where there's many potential disruptions. Disruptions might come from the geopolitical situation. It might come from natural catastrophes because of global warming. It might come from cyber attacks and things like that. Or it might even be, as we have seen, that there's wars going on in different parts of the world. So many potential disruptions that is affecting companies. So the focus has moved, and they focus much more on resilience and things like that than before. So what is companies actually doing here? So one of the things we can see with the trade pattern, here is two different graphs. One that look at the first one at the left side, look at the geographical distance that of trade, so to say. So it looks at how far is different trade traveling. So how far is trade traveling from when it's produced until it reaches the customers in the other end? That's the geographical distance on the left side. On the right side, we look at the geopolitical distance that trade is traveling. And when we say geopolitical distance, it is, we measure bilaterally what is the distance between two countries. And we do that by looking at how two countries are voting in the United Nations. Those countries that are voting more similar in United Nations they have a short geographical distance, while those countries that vote very differently has a large geographical distance. So what we see if we start by the geographical distance, which we look at over some years, and you can say it's actually the gray area that are the more interesting part, the latter part of the graph there, that says something about what has happened, you can say, let's say in the last 7 years. And when we look at the geographical distance, it actually has changed quite little. It says that from 2017 until, you can say, the expectation 2024, it has increased only 1%. So basically, the geographical distance that the trade has traveled is very constant, not changed very much, which means that we don't see a lot of nearshoring, backshoring, and some of the other things that we have talked about. Of course, there's some of that going on, but it's not a huge trend, because we can see on average trade is traveling more or less the same today that it did 7 years ago. If we, on the other hand, look at the graph on the right side about the geopolitical distance, we can actually see, and we again look at the gray area here, which is the last 7 years, we can see bigger changes. We can actually see that it has gone down 7% here. So we see that while the geographical distance has not changed so much, the geopolitical distance has changed. So what has happened is that countries have still trade with countries in the same area, but with countries that are a little bit more geopolitically friendly than other countries. So let me mention some example. So, for example, U.S. firms, instead of trading with China, that might have where U.S. might have a big geopolitical distance, instead they trade with Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, and those countries that have the same geographic distance, but lower geopolitical distance to the United States. And another case is Russia, for example, that was trading much more with Europe before. They're not trading with Europe so much anymore, but they trade with other countries that where the geopolitical distance is lower, like China and so forth. So that's the big change. We can see that how companies have actually reacted a little bit to this geopolitical changes we have seen in the world. They are simply moving their activities and their trade to countries that are geopolitically closer. This is what we call friendshoring. So there's friendshoring going on, not so much nearshoring, backshoring, but more friendshoring. So you can say, as I have indicated here, there's many open questions, many questions open for you to study as IB scholars. So are we only seeing the tip of the iceberg here? Will we see more radical changes in the global value chain in the future? Will we see more regionalization, more friendshoring? What will be the response from companies on these changes in the world? And what are the consequences in your region, in the South Asian region? What is obvious here is that we are facing a new world in terms of cross-border activities, but which one we don't know for sure. And that is part of your job to investigate what is coming and how can we advise companies and society here. For sure, we live indeed in turbulent worlds, and you can say it has never been as important to understand the world we live in as it is now, and understand the implication for business and society, which is precisely what international business is about, and which is, you can say, your job also as international business scholars. And with this, I will thank you for listening, and I'm sure you will have a fruitful and great conference, AIB South Asia chapter. Thanks for listening.
Thanks to Professor Peterson for sharing his vision on how in the era of globalization, cross-border trade is increasing due to innovation and technological changes, and also for his continued leadership of the global AIB community. As a part of today's proceedings, we will now release the AIB South Asia Conference to 2026 proceedings.
I will give this. I give it off for that. Oh no, it's not. It's Indian made. So.
To conclude the inaugural session, I now invite Professor Dipankar Sinha, Co-Chair AIB South Asia Conference 2026 and Head of the Research Division of IIFT Kolkata, to deliver the vote of thanks. Professor Sinha holds a PhD from Industrial and Systems Engineering, IIT Kharagpur, and currently serves as a professor at the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. He is the head of the International Trade Operations and Logistics Divisions and also leads the Research Division and the Center for Trade Facilitation at the IIFT Kolkata campus. With over 2 decades of experience in the port industry and nearly 2 decades in academia, research, training, and consultancy, Professor Sinha has made significant contributions to the field of logistics, trade, and port operations. He is the holder of 2 patents, author of 3 books, and published over 50 research articles in national and international journals. He has received several prestigious awards from the organizations such as the International Association of Ports and Harbors, IEOM Society, IIM Lucknow, AIB, and Kolkata Port. Professor Sinha has served as an advisor to multiple national and international bodies, including Niti Aayog and the Ministry of Shipping, the Ministry of External Affairs, the Asian Development Bank, and major Indian ports. Notably, he served as the G20 Knowledge Partner on Logistics for Trade under the Trade and Investment Working Group of the Government of India. He has also conducted executive training programs in India and abroad and has guided several PhD scholars. Sir, I welcome you to deliver the vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to all the dignitaries, participants, delegates, colleagues, and guests. On behalf of IIFT Kolkata campus, it is our pleasure and privilege to have with us the leading personalities, academicians, and dignitaries in this AIB South Asia Conference 2026. We are grateful to Professor Raghunath, Chair of AIB South Asia, for bestowing the responsibility to IIFT to hold this prestigious event. We thank him for guiding us since the start until now, whatever you see, he has the inputs in all respects. We are grateful to AIB for also allowing us to become a member, annual member of the AIB team. We express our gratitude to Professor Saket Jahara for traveling all the way from United States and gracing the Please talk on the economic dynamics of the economies in the South Asia merits further research, and we sure that we as researchers in this field who have gained a lot of knowledge and would like to carry it forward in our future times. We express our profound thanks to Professor Tobin Pedersen, just the president of the AIB, whose words that we heard, and he has really put forward few research questions of the changing world dynamics and how the trade theory needs to be reshaped, taking into account the current scenario. We express our heartfelt gratitude to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, for patronizing the academic endeavor of IIFT in general and to position us in the world body of knowledge. A warm, sincere thanks to Professor K. Ragarajan, Center Head, Kolkata campus, for steering AIB South Asia Conference 2026 and ensuring that it reaches its greatest heights. Our deep appreciation goes to the core team led by Professor Devasish Chakravarti, Naman Sharma, and Professor Raghuveer Negi. We express our deep appreciation to and heartfelt thanks to all the faculty members who have extended the support and given us advice from time to time, formally, informally, in order to hold the conference in a great manner. We sincerely acknowledge the diligence, sincerity, and tireless effort of our student team, of our office team, of our media team, the research division, the IT division, the academic administration, the establishment, the finance, store, and all other divisions in this institute. We hope that henceforth our program continues to be held in the way we have planned so far. We have now technical session to begin. So all those who have papers in the technical session 1, 2, and 3 in room number 4, 5, 6 are requested to kindly be there. Meanwhile, you can have a quick grab of the tea and move there in another 5 minutes. That's our request because we are slightly behind the schedule. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful.
We are also pleased to inform that several stalls set up by MSMEs and publishers are located at the basketball court and atrium. We encourage you all to visit these stalls, explore their offerings, and show your support. Your encouragement means a lot to them. Thank you all for being a part of the inauguration of the AIB South Asia Conference 2026. We wish you an intellectually stimulating and enriching conference experience. Thank you. Okay, the technical session 1 will start from 12:20.